are still showing up every day like they have to prove themselves. They are on all of the time. They are saying yes to every project. They are overcompensating at every minute of every day. And they run out of steam because we can't function like that. But the behavior, the root behind it is that they feel like they have to prove themselves. They feel like they're struggling with what people call imposter syndrome. And really, what that is, it's just a fear of being worthy, fear of not being worthy. And so, what we have to do is a lot of mindset work and like shift that fear. And like you said, it can come from anywhere. Like, I'm not going to say it can come from one place or another place. It can come from so many places. So many ways that you can get that programming growing up. Maybe you had super critical parents, and so now you're a perfectionist because you're afraid of criticism. Maybe you were taught to be kind and nice and put others first at all times, always, to the point where you didn't even know what your own needs are. You don't know how to ask for what you need. There are so many seemingly innocent ways where people probably had good intentions when raising us that can cause these behaviors to go kind of out of control. Or maybe even as an adult, like maybe your childhood was perfect, I don't know, but maybe as an adult you go into a field and you're seeing thousands of people be laid off, and now you have a fear of losing your job. You feel scarcity, that there's just not enough. And that's another big one I see, is a fear of loss or rejection, whether it's job loss or financial loss. And so you show up, you're overcompensating. You don't say no to anything, because if you do, you're going to lose your job. That was a big fear of mine. So yes, there's these behaviors are driven by a mindset of fear, and mindsets can be changed.
So let's talk about the preventative stages. What are some ways that we can go into to help shift these mindsets and perspectives?
The first, when we're looking at shifting a fear, because sometimes just tackling the behavior head on doesn't work, right? Or it'll work for a little bit, but then as soon as you're busy or get distracted, like you're right back to the where you were. And so in shifting fears, a couple of things are really, really helpful. One is get someone in your corner. Don't do it by yourself. I've progressed so much more quickly once I started working with coaches and experts and therapists and like getting people in my corner. So I'm not doing everything by myself. So build a team, right? Get people on your side who support you, because your boss wants things from you, your husband wants things from you, your kids want things from you. Everyone wants a piece. Who's holding space for you? So make sure that you've got someone lined up who doesn't have an agenda, whose sole purpose is to support you. And that will accelerate your recovery. It will accelerate those mindset shifts. It'll accelerate those behavior shifts. So that is, I think, a really big critical piece that we often don't talk about, is just get some support. You don't have to do it by yourself. And then the next piece is to look for evidence to the contrary. So if you're, let's say for me, for example, I was terrified of losing my job. I thought, if I say no to anything, if I push back at all, I am losing my job. And so I didn't. But what ended up happening was I ended up in bed, unable to do my job. I wasn't saying no, but I wasn't doing my job either. Like that wasn't going to go anywhere good, right? So I was about to experience my fear of losing my job because I didn't say no. So I think that the shift I had to make was that I am the most critical asset in my career. I am the most critical asset in my home in terms of being able to provide for others, right? And so when you view yourself as an asset, as a resource, a critical resource, the critical resource in your life, then it makes sense that you start to manage yourself, right? So that walk at lunch, leaving your computer, walking out of the office and taking a break, that's no longer a luxury. That's no longer an indulgence. That's not you slacking off. That becomes you managing your asset, which is your energy and your focus. And if you don't do that, you will lose both, or whatever it is for you, right? For me, it was like, leave the desk. um, so you start to shift the way that you perceive yourself. Instead of last on the list, you become first on the list, literally first on the list. You need to be number one on your list. And that is not selfish. That is managing your number one asset. Because if you don't do that, your job will suffer, your kids will suffer, your marriage will suffer, everything around you will start to deteriorate. And for those of us who have a habit of burning out, those of us who, for whatever reason, have become people pleasers, who have become perfectionists, who have become that person that helps everyone else at our own expense, those of us who have become the people who are afraid of saying no especially need to internalize this. You are not being selfish. It is the opposite of selfish. What is selfish is pushing yourself to the point where you can't get up and then everyone else has to pick up the pieces, right? So it's a mindset shift. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not being selfish. I have permission to take care of me. Actually, I'm required to take care of me. It is a requirement, and I need to do it first so that I have something to give. So there's a big shift in mindset there, which should be followed with shifts in actions. So get yourself someone in your corner to remind you that you are valuable and that taking care of yourself is required. You're not being selfish. Second, take care of yourself. You are an asset. You are the most critical asset in your career. You have to prioritize your own care to be able to achieve what you want to achieve in your life, even if it is on behalf of others. So I think those are the two biggies that can really make a difference for people in terms of those mindset shifts. But then I also have, in terms of prevention, and actual steps that you can take to prevent and recover burnout. I have a whole system I put together that is repeatable, right? I've proven it. It works on multiple people in different scenarios. It's repeatable. So the first thing to realize is that when you're uncomfortable saying no, it doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you can't say no. Like, so I used to think, well, it's just not part of my personality, right? It has nothing to do with your personality. Saying no is a skill. So if you suck at it, that just means you haven't been practicing or you haven't been taught. So it's a skill that can be learned. That's a good first thing to just realize is you can learn how. It's going to be okay. And so I've got this 5-step method, right? So the first step that we go through is pursue your yes. And why does that matter? Because if we get really clear on what we're saying yes to in our lives, like we know exactly, if I know exactly what is valuable to me and what I want right now in this phase of my life, in this season of my life, then I can say yes to that. And when you start saying yes to things and you say that yes to something with passion and confidence because you truly care about it, the no's become so much easier. Another thing to keep in mind is when you say yes to something, whether it's with intention or not, you're saying no to something else. So becoming very intentional with our yeses and pursuing what matters to you, you will automatically be saying no to a lot of noise. And things will start getting less cluttered in your life. You'll have less overwhelm. You'll have more clarity because you know where you're going. And because you know where you're going and you care and you're saying yes very firmly to where you're going, that the no's will start to happen on their own, right? Because people will be like, oh, she's doing this because that's what she's good at. That's what she's passionate about. She's becoming, getting a reputation as the expert in this area. Let other people handle the noise, right? So that the first step is really pursuing your yes, stepping into authenticity. And then the second step is energize your being. So once you know where you're going and why, and you're willing to go and chase it, right? Pursue it. Then that energizing your being, what I mentioned earlier, those basic steps of taking care of yourself, eating for energy, sleeping well, making space in your life for movement, joyful movement, the basic things that we've all been ignoring because we're too busy, because we're afraid we're going to lose our jobs, because we want to make our boss happy, because if we just finish this one big project, we'll have more time later. Once we start prioritizing those things and like really filling our cup and energizing our being, we will become so much more productive. You have so much more time and energy to accomplish what you want to accomplish by taking more time away, right? And investing in you. So that's the second step is energize your being. And then the third step is to assert your voice. And this is where we get into learning how to say what we need, right? How to express, ask for what you want and get it, and how to say no. And there's, different ways to say no. You can, I like to think of it as delegate, automate, minimize, or just straight up say no, thank you. And there's ways to do that. There's scripts that you can follow. I can get a link for you guys at the end of the call where get those scripts. But it's a skill that can be learned. And that's, assert your voice. That's the third step in the process. And then the fourth, if you've done those three things, you will have more time, more energy, and more focus. So step number 4 is making sure that you claim those things for yourself. Claim that time, claim that energy, claim that focus. Make sure you're crystal clear on where you're going. And then the last step is to springboard into that surplus, right? So go to the next level. because, okay, you've recovered from your burnout, you've got the energy, you've got the focus, you've got the time, you've claimed it for yourself. Let's level up. What do you really want? Are you where you really want to be?
I absolutely love how you're saying that saying no is a skill.
It is. Yeah.
I know like people can easily fall into that victim mentality where it's like I can't say no, like I'm helpless, like I can't do it. And I love how you're tracing it back to like beliefs as well. Hey guys, I would like to take a moment to introduce you to our app Yoga Plus. You will have access to an incredible selection of videos led by top instructors in yoga, fitness, nutrition, and so much more. Download our Yoga Plus app available on iOS and Android today.